Welcome back, everybody. It's our third podcast episode here. We are going to actually switch it up a little. We said we were going to talk interior offensive line, but we're going to receivers. We're going to the excitement position, the skill position. So we're going to jump into our top five rankings here just in a couple of minutes. But once again, I'm Jonah, joined as ever by my friend Ken. And Ken, what's going on out there?
Not much. Just excited to be on the fall call here tonight and see what we have going on at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And, we had talked a little bit about our crazy scenario. What if the Jags trade out of the number one position? And we've got some information actually written up on that on our front page. You did most of that, or basically all of it. So
Yeah, it was just a thought that had been thrown around a lot, and you and I started talking about it, and just the what ifs. And I've talked about it with a few other people, and now I've got a lot of wheels turning in people's brains, and just the thought process of possibly being able to build a roster so complete quarterback in there. Anybody watching should go check that out and take a look at it and see what they think and tell us how crazy we are.
yeah, I ran through the PFF mock draft with this scenario, and gosh, what do you end up with? I mean, probably five new starters this year, because you've got your three first round picks. I mean, I think you're being a little conservative, even with the trade value for two second rounders, because the Jags have the Vikes second rounder this year too,
Oh yeah.
and then the first pick of the second round. So I mean, you got five quality guys in the first two round, and then you're starting out with three first rounders the next year too. So it's a it's an interesting scenario that has some legs. So yeah,
Yeah, and it
well,
goes on top of all their existing young talent that they already have. So
yeah, they could really build something pretty interesting. So who knows? It won't happen, but who knows? All right. Well, shall we get into wide receiver rankings? I hear wide receiver rankings are the talk of the town right now.
yeah, I heard a lot about it the last few days, and everybody's talking about Chris Sims and how he does clickbait articles by choosing some players that shouldn't be there, or putting players ahead of players that everybody else disagrees with. So he releases wide receiver rankings, and I just been hearing it all day. And he has a couple guys higher up on his board than I think they should be. But they do add some value, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. Uh, Today was a good day. I don't know if anybody knows, but we got to kind of partake in our first pro day of the season this year and take part in the Mississippi State virtual pro day. So that was kind of part of our day. But yeah, we're just going to keep moving forward and handle what we need to handle. But I think, unless you have anything to add right now, John, I think I want to hear who your number five is, because I'm still tossing up my five. I've got 5 and 6 and 7 with stars by their names.
Yeah, no, I get it. Towards the end of the top five, there are a couple of guys who could definitely slip in here. So a decently deep wide receiver class. Actually, I think a deep wide receiver class. So good. No disrespect if they didn't make the list. There's a lot of guys who are real close. But I ended up going with Terrence Marshall Jr. as my number five. I like him coming out of LSU. Uh, Big boy, great hands, fast, 20 years old, a lot of room to grow. A couple of real good seasons in 19 and 20. Um, a, I mean, I almost want to say like safe, but you know, safe at the number five, where it's hard to see this guy not at least being a good wide receiver. Can't tell you if he's going to light the world on fire or not. I just it would be shocking if he was not at least a very good or good to very good wide receiver for 10 years in the league. And so that me feeling real comfortable with him kind of safe made me go with him.
Maybe talking to me lately is kind of changing your persona when it comes to drafting, because you usually talk about the boomer bust, and I'm talking about all the safety.
Well, we're going, top five rankings. I'm looking for a little more. I want
Yeah.
my late rounders to be boomer bust.
Yeah, I like Marshall as well. I have him just a little further down my board. He's like that, just barely missed the top five, where I don't really separate that group too much. But the one thing I wish I would have seen out of him is I wish he would have finished the season this year and shown us what he could do in a whole year without Ja'Marr Chase there and whatnot. I do think Chase opting out the full season gave us a chance to kind of put the spotlight on Marshall, and he was able to produce with a lesser quarterback, with Burrow being gone. But he still leaves a little bit to be desired on the tape for me, and not so much that he lacks skill. I mean more so that there's just not as much tape as I want to see. I want to see one of those 1,000-yard years, and just not quite there for me. So there's just a couple question marks where I didn't jump him up into my 4 or 5 range. But not saying that he doesn't deserve it, not saying the skill's not there. I do think there are 9, legitimately 9 guys should go in the top 2 rounds this year that are safe bets to step in and play some serious snaps for a team, and he's definitely one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, understandable. Maybe he's the slightly overlooked LSU receiver this year.
Well,
It
yeah,
worked out pretty well last year, so
can't complain about that analogy at all.
who's on your number 5?
At number 5 for me, I have Bateman out of Minnesota.
Hmm.
And I really would have liked to see him finish the full season this year as well, and see him put up numbers without Tyler Johnson across the field from him. But he was playing well. He was on a pace for a 1,000-yard year again. In 2019, he had 1,000 yards plus 10 touchdowns. I have him at 5, though. He's not the fastest receiver in the class, and there's a lot of speed in this class. There's a lot of game breakers in this receiver group. Even if we get a little bit further down my list, like Tony out of Florida, like there's some game breakers. And Bateman's not that guy, but somehow he's always open, and he does a good job using his body and his frame to block off the defender on contested catches. He tends to shake just enough to create that separation on the slant routes in the red zone. And he's one of my favorite things is he snatches the ball with his hands. And that's important. We always talk about it, but there's receivers that don't always do it. And I think he does it pretty much every time he can. He just has all the measurables for me, and he produced. And he did it quietly, but incredibly efficiently, where he kind of, like you just said with Marshall, he's very safe for me, but I don't see him being a game breaker. He's more of an outside receiver only in my eyes, but I could be wrong there. There's a lot of things that change from the college to the pro game. But he's a chain mover. He's going to run good routes. He's going to catch the ball. And I think he's the type of receiver that could quickly become a quarterback's favorite receiver in third down and troublesome situations, because you can trust him to get the ball.
Yeah. So I like Bateman myself, and I guess, hey, he's my number 4 receiver, so let me talk about Bateman a little bit.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I like Bateman. Strong route runner. You said he doesn't have the speed, which true, but he wins. I mean, he gets open downfield. So does the straight line speed really matter? I'm thinking a little bit kind of like an Adam Thielen, where he's not your blazing 4-4, 4-3. I mean, I don't think Thielen's in the 4-4. He's plenty fast, but it doesn't matter. He wins and he runs away from people, but his 4-4 or his 40's not gonna pop your eyes. But so I don't know. I mean, hey, Bateman's coming out of Minnesota, not Montenko State, but still Minnesota. So who knows? Maybe he's kind of like an Adam Thielen type. He actually did line up in the slot quite a bit this year, so I like that. Again, kind of. I mean, I don't know. I got on my Thielen thinking and just kind of went with that. That can run across the middle in the slot, can play outside, and make plays over the top as well. even though again it doesn't seem like he should be able to because he's not blazing fast, but he does. So, um, yeah, he's got good hands. Drops very few, and I mean, yeah, I'm a fan of his. A little bit bigger fan of his than yours. Not a lot, but I I like Bateman, and I mean, I think almost everyone has the top three wide receivers as the same people. Different numbers, but it's who do you like out of these three guys? So
Hmm.
outside of those top three, I think Bateman's a nice consolation if you don't get one of the, big name receivers. I think he's easy first rounder, and I, yeah, I'm excited. I think he plays well.
Yeah, and everything you said spot on. When I made the comment about the slot, when I picture my ideal team, he doesn't play in the slot on my roster. Not saying he can't, but I think that he does have a home in the NFL as more of an outside the numbers receiver. Um, just because I see so many teams now with the slot receiver being a game changer, a game breaker. That position's moving around a lot, and they move him in motion. But if he goes to a little bit more of an old school pro set offense, yeah, he could still run the slot really, really well. But actually, I did have him as my number four until one guy had a pro day today, who I am really high on. Like you said, I'm the high man on Twyman. Well, there's another guy that I'm really high on that a lot of people aren't. And after his pro day today, I just decided to bump him up one spot on my list. So Bateman was four, so we were tied originally.
All right. Well, who's the mystery guy? Who's at number four?
Well, did you tell us your? Oh, you did, Marshall. Sorry, little brain fart. For me, number
Yeah,
four is Amon-Ra St. Brown out
yeah.
of USC, and I've been really high on this young man for quite a while. And it all stems from the fact that I spend a lot of time talking about why don't some scouts or some teams, mimic other teams? And we look at the NFL and you see the Steelers. And for years and years and years, the Steelers have done a really good job of drafting late round wide receivers and developing them and turning them into really great players. And so I always go back and say, well, who runs the scouting room there? And I found some articles, and they've had the same guy running their department for 27 years. And so I talked to myself and talked to some friends about what do the Steelers look for. And I started thinking, they always look for tough guys, gritty guys, guys that block. They're willing to keep playing when they're not the play. And this young man just stuck out to me, this Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC. And he plays in the slot a lot there, just like Juju Smith-Schuster did. He's just a tick under 6 foot, 190 pounds, but he literally is built like, just a brick, you know what. His father was, I believe, a Mr. Universe, and his brother is a Quantum St. Brown for the Packers. So, he's got pedigree. He was a 5-star recruit out of high school. He had a 1,000-yard season this year, led the team in receptions. But they use this kid all over the place. They put him in the slot. They move him around. They run him out of the backfield. He's a game breaker too, even though he doesn't have game breaking speed. He has, long touchdowns where he gets past everybody. But what I just fell in love with is watching this kid block. You watch some of the highlights and he's grabbing corners by their shoulder pads and throwing them into the sidelines. And that's just impressive to me. And he loves to mix it up with linebackers over the middle. So when I see him play, I guess I'm a little reminiscent of a Hines Ward. And I just absolutely love that. And then even today, Kyle Shanahan was raving about the type of player he is and what he does. And he's that type of guy. And for me, ideal fit for this guy is put him across from AJ Brown in Tennessee.
Mm.
And because he can run the jet sweeps, he can do all that as well. And he could be, he's big and physical like Brown, and he can do a lot of things. And I think he'd be a neat fit.
Okay, you said he had it. They had their pro day today.
Yeah.
You know what he ran?
4.5.
All right, 4.5.
4.51, I believe.
Yep.
Which was a little
Still,
quicker than they anticipated he would run.
Again, obviously, still plenty fast. I guess everyone gets obsessed maybe with that 4.4 or even sub 4.4 numbers, but yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown is definitely undervalued in my opinion. Great at route running. um, and very good hands, good body control, good at contested balls, good at going up and getting that ball, with another guy who's there, which, that's the NFL. You don't get college open in the NFL, so you got to be able to make some tougher catches.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a guy who is in that, you kind of talked about it. Wouldn't be shocked if he's, you know, a top five receiver out of this class in NFL career terms. Decided to go with my LSU guy instead, but hey,
You can't really go wrong here. I like the off the stats things, the blocking. Um, and there's just something about that grittiness that I love. And another team that kind of just popped my head just now would be I would love to almost see him in the Ravens uniform too, because you could almost use him as a lead blocker on a lot of these option plays with Lamar and Dobbins.
yeah, gosh, a lot of places for him to fit. Who knows where he'll go, but yeah, a solid wide receiver.
And who do you have at number 3? And I know this is kind of where we get into the man, we're looking for hairs and splitting them up here because these guys are good. But I'm
Yeah,
assuming I know who your 3 are, but who is your 3?
I think you're gonna guess correctly on who the three guys are, and yeah, it is. It's just kind of pick who do you really want to go with, and I went Ja'Marr Chase as
Okay.
my number three. I guess again, hey, LSU, right?
Yeah, you
But
like your LSU guys.
well, the one he treated me real well last year, so
Yes, he did.
what can I say? But it's almost hard because like how do I really say that he is half a step maybe below another couple of guys, maybe. I mean, Devonta Smith is amazing. He's 19 years old. Um, he went against top competition at LSU, really good corners that he faced. Now he didn't play this year, so maybe that's where it's like, okay, that makes me feel comfortable that you're number three instead of number two, two or one. Okay, sure. Let's go with that. But what a dominant year he had last year. Uh I 1,700 yards. Well, almost 1,800 yards and 20
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. He's got your size. I mean, he's obviously a great athlete. Good hands. What's, he didn't get to see him play this year without Joe Burrow. Maybe that's a little bit, hey, how are you going to look without last year's number one pick throwing you the ball? But I mean, obviously, guy's a star, so I can't really nitpick him that much. He's great, Ja'Marr Chase. You're great.
Yeah, I don't see weakness in his game. But that's one of our jobs is to try to find what is a weakness. And when it comes to the actual film and him on the field, I don't see a lot of it. And there's one thing that I think kind of separates somebody else from him, and I kind of want to wait to get to later, and that's what I'll call his weakness in a sense. But his strengths, I mean, he's phenomenal. And I guess I'll just talk about it a little bit more because he's my number. I got him coming up on my list too. So I'll just wait a second because I do a bad job of remembering that sometimes.
All
Uh,
right. Well, let's get to your number three.
yeah, and so you were just talking about Chase, and this was a real toss up for me right here. The last week or so, I have really gone back and forth between all three of these guys revolving as number one, and I got down and just kind of hashed out some hard thoughts today. But I have Jalen Waddle out of Alabama at 3. That being said, um, like we already said, there's not a difference really. They're different players in a sense, the top 3, but I don't know how you could go wrong with any of them. Waddle only played a few games this year though, before he got hurt. So I wish there was more tape because he's never had 1,000-yard year, and actually his best season ever statistically was his freshman year. And so I kind of wonder, what it is. But oh my gosh, this kid is fast. he has the out of the big three, he is the biggest game breaker for the deep ball, in my opinion. And it's what he can do with his agility in the ball in space and get him the ball on a screen. And next thing you know, he's 25 yards downfield. He is just electric and he is exciting. One of the things that I absolutely love about him as well is 10, 15 years from now, we might not even be talking about Waddle as maybe the best receiver ever, but he might become the best return man we've ever seen in the NFL. This guy is an amazing kick and punt returner, which kind of gives him a step up. So I almost bumped him up because of that ability as well. But it's his ability to shake people off. The one reason I have him at 3 is I don't think he's as polished of a route runner as the other two guys that we're going to talk about. So that was my weakness for him, is he wasn't the strongest route runner, but he uses his athleticism and speed to get open.
Yeah. So I'll jump into Jalen Waddle because he happens to be my number 2 guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you said. So he's 5'10", so he's a little short. I mean, 5'10's not really that short for a receiver, but a little short. But we were talking about the slot guy who is a game breaker. I mean, Jalen Waddle is just explosive. The types of plays he can make. He did not play a full season this year, but was over 100 yards every game this season.
Yeah.
I mean, he was 21 yards a reception this year. Big plays, he's that big playmaker. And I will say I would have liked to see, I guess, a little more production out of him in college, but you can't watch this guy and not fall in love and be really impressed with what he does. There was another guy who's pretty good who he was sharing targets.
Yeah, I mean, that receiving class has been deep.
That affects his numbers a little, and so maybe that's, of course, if he was on basically any other team, he's far and away the number 1 target and probably doesn't have too tough a time getting to that 1,000 yards. But yeah, I'd like to see a little more. And gosh, yeah, I mean, really the weakness, just a little on the small side. He is that slot receiver size, which is great, especially as the NFL is kind of moving more and more towards having weapons everywhere,
Yeah.
spread them out, take the guys, go outside and have Jalen Waddle have a linebacker trying to cover him and see what happens. So,
your comment about the linebacker just really had me thinking, because this kid, like you said, he's such a game breaker that you've got to put a corner on him. You can't expect a safety to cover him.
Yeah.
You can't.
Or you've got to have a lot of help. But yeah, I mean, Waddle's stud. Wish he was 3 inches taller. I don't know. I mean, but again, real nitpicky.
Yeah, he is pure electricity. Like you said, when you watch the film, every time the ball, even before he catches it, when the ball is thrown his way, you get excited to see what's coming next. If he's lined up on the left and Jones even looks left, you're like throwing it to Waddle, and you want to see, and he's going to bring a whole new aspect of athleticism to a team. When you think about player comparisons, this is what people always ask me: is like, who do you compare him to? I think he's a more electric Percy Harvin.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I'm talking college Percy Harvin, where everybody wanted this guy because he was the most electric player. Like he's a more athletic Percy Harvin, and I hope he has a better NFL career. But I mean, that's
even Percy wasn't too terrible for a little while. Yeah. He produced in the NFL for a few years.
And I don't think Waddle would play out of the backfield like Harvin did and play running back. But man, in that slot, moving around, getting the ball underneath. He does. He reminds me of the Percy Harvin college tape where he was untouchable and everybody talked about the guy every night on ESPN.
Yep. Just get the ball. Find a way to get the ball in his hands, and
Yep.
something good's gonna happen.
So, I guess I'll jump into my two now, and it was your number three. That's Jamar Chase. And I was talking about the weaknesses here, and Waddle just now. We were talking about getting on the ball, and I said it wasn't the greatest route runner. You're gonna have to scheme to get on the ball. These top two guys, they can get open with their feet and their quickness and those things on the routes. But Jamar Chase is a special talent. He should definitely be taken in the top 10. He high points the ball very well, and he's not as big as he plays. I mean, I think he was what, 6'1", 6'1.5".
Yeah.
But
It's tough to
sometimes
say
on the
what's
film,
official and what's not, but we'll call him 6'1".
on the film, sometimes when you see some of these plays, you'd think he was 6'5", because I mean, he just high points it well. He goes up over defenders, and he plays bigger than he is. But when he has the ball in his hands, unlike Waddle, who uses quickness and shiftiness, Chase looks like a running back. I mean, this guy breaks tackles left and right. And there's not a whole lot of wide receivers that break tackles like that. And a lot of the film he had made me think of some recent receivers in the NFL. And I can't remember who the Titans were playing this last year. I think it was against the Ravens, and A.J. Brown looked like Derrick Henry. He had one reception, and he just
Yeah.
drugged the defense. And that's kind of what I see with Jamar Chase. That ability to just to move people with his body. He gets open, and actually he's pretty dang fast too. I was kind of worried about what the speed difference
He's
was.
not slow.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he was a little slower, and then I watched the game film, and there's a lot of plays where it looks like he's going to get ran down, or he's running stride for stride with a defensive back, and he just leaves them behind. And so I couldn't really find a lot of weaknesses in his game. But the one thing I did see is that, like, when there's trouble, I think I want to see him work at coming back to the quarterback better. Um, and that's a big deal. Receivers that come back to the quarterback when the quarterback's moving around and rolling out get a lot of receptions that way, and help their teams that way. And I think Chase lacks that just a little bit compared to somebody else.
Yeah. No, I mean, great player, obviously. Which brings me to number one, which I'm guessing we share our number one receiver, which is actually a little surprising. I thought it'd be different at the top, but guess not. Devonta Smith. I mean, what do you say about Devonta Smith? Okay, so here's his negative. He's skinny. That's
I
it.
wish I was skinny.
Yeah, but you know, hey, people wish he bulk up a little more, and that's it. That's it for weaknesses. Speed, size, athleticism, route running, hands, explosiveness. I mean, you know, top guy playing against top competition. Making big plays in big games, dominating against the top other draftable talent on the defensive side. How I don't know. Again, I guess put on 20 pounds of muscle, and he's unstoppable, but he's pretty much unstoppable anyways. Had an unbelievable year. 1,800 yards this year, and a nice little just 1,250 last year. 14 TDs last year, 23 this year. So 2 years of big production and amazing talent. I don't know. I just, he's so good at catching the ball, though, too. He makes circus catches, yeah, that's Devonta Smith, and wish again if his teammate was 3 inches taller and he was 20 pounds heavier. Who knows? He'd flip a coin for one to be number one overall. I don't know. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people are still flipping coins for these three this year.
I mean,
you mentioned putting on weight for him, though. The one negative really for me is just the size. And he supposedly weighs 170 now. But I mean, he is young. He's still, he's not a grown man. I mean, I grew a lot of that age. He could put on 10 pounds, especially with an NFL regiment. Uh, and people have been talking about Marvin Harrison along with him a lot, and that's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. And I hate that comparison sometimes because, well, I'm a Colts fan and Marvin Harrison is just, he's untouchable in my eyes. But man, when you look at him play, that comparison is legitimate. People said Marvin was too small. He couldn't do it. He couldn't take the hits. And when you watch the film, Devonta Smith is very similar to Harrison to me, not even in the way he runs routes, the way he runs, but the way he protects himself and takes the hits. Like, he's skinny, but he's so physically gifted that he knows how to contort his body when he takes that hit. He doesn't like stiffen up. He kind of goes with it and moves his body around it, or he sees the big hit coming and he doesn't give him, like, he gives himself up, but not to the hit. He slides a little bit sometimes. And that's what a guy his size is going to need to do. But I think he knows what he's doing. I mean, even off the field, this kid checks all the boxes. His character is through the roof. I've never found anybody that even says anything even slightly shady about him. I even heard a story about one of his favorite teachers never got to go to their stadium, wanted to go, so he gave her his game pass, and it just like changed her life or whatnot. But you're talking about this last year, and so when I was getting into numbers and whatnot, I was listening to good old Chris Sims, and he's talking about, well, I don't care what the production say, what the stats say. You need to look at the physical gifts and the ability. And yeah, that's true. But I mean, how many guys do we see that get drafted on physical gifts that never produced, and well, they never do? There's intelligence to football. I don't care how fast you run, how big you are. If you don't know how to play the game, you're not going to be the greatest. And so when I was talking about the top three here, I was really splitting hairs, like we said. But Devonta Smith comes back to the ball exceptionally, exceptionally well. His route running is, I mean, uncanny. His ability to get open with the most subtle moves and not open by a little bit. I mean, half of the time it looks like they forgot this guy is on the field. He is so wide open that when I first watched the tape, I was like, nah, this is just really good play calling. But then you go back and see how bad he lost the corner. The corners are falling down. But so I was comparing him and Chase, and I started looking at stats. Like you said, not this season that just happened, but the year before, Chase had 84 catches for 1,780 yards and 20 touchdowns. That's a remarkable year. Well, what does Devonta Smith do? He goes out and puts up 117 catches for 1,856 and 23. So I look at those and say, well, maybe Chase has a little more big play ability, but Smith is a little more consistent and reliable with all those catches. And then you talk about the national championship game. Both won a title, right? Well, they had pretty similar title games. Devonta had 12 for 215 and 3 touchdowns. And then Chase had 9 for 221 and 2 touchdowns. But one of the things I look for when I'm looking for my player that is going to be the guy, you know, when we talk about players, is how do they show up in all the big games? And I went back and I looked at that championship run for Chase. And like I said, he had 220 yards and 2 touchdowns in the title. But over those 3 games, when I'm talking conference championship, college playoff, and championship game, he only had 14 catches for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns. So in the other 2 games, he had 5 catches and 100 yards combined. Where did he go? Well, if you remember right, Justin Jefferson outshined him. Well, Devonta Smith in his other 2 games, or I guess in the 3 games combined, had 34 catches for 530 and 8 touchdowns. So not counting his championship, that gave him what, 22 catches for 314 yards and 5 touchdowns. So that guy showed up to all the big games and said, I'm going to take over. And for me, that just shows game breaker to me. That shows leader. That shows will and determination. I always talk about grittiness. And even though he's little, he can literally do all of it. And he's a game breaker as well. And you talked about speed, and people say he's not as fast as he should be for his frame. But man, when you watch him play, nobody catches the guy.
I'm not worried about his speed whatsoever.
I mean, I'm honestly, there's no red flag with this guy for me. In today's NFL, we talk about size all the time, and we've been talking about quarterbacks are too small. Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. Well, aren't they 2 of the best we've seen? Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. They're doing pretty decent. Wide receivers are getting smaller too. You know what I mean? And the thing people aren't talking about is the defense is getting smaller. You know,
that's the thing. There's not a lot of 6'4" outside corners out there because a 6'4" corner can't run with a 6'2" receiver.
Yeah, and you're not running over the middle anymore into these 270, 250-pound middle linebackers either. I mean, linebackers now are weighing 225 to 240 on the heavy side, not 250 to 270 anymore. And so when I think of Devonta Smith going over the middle and getting hit by a linebacker like a Jeremy Chin or a Leonard, I mean, these are 210, 215-pound linebackers now, not 260-pound linebackers running around. And so there's a little less concern for me of him getting injured with his size. And I don't want to pass on him because he's a little small and then watch him have a Hall of Fame career with no injuries. And I only didn't take him because he didn't weigh as much as another guy.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything he did is amazing. And he was actually number one in deep yards and tied for first with deep catches this year. So he still gets deep. And, yeah. Well, and yeah, 117 catches. And
he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, one other game that you could talk about was last season. And you talk about Alabama and that receiving core, and they had Ruggs, Jeudy, Waddle, and Smith, right? I mean, wow, how do you defend that? But when they played LSU last year, he lined up man-to-man with Derek Stingley, who is the best corner in the country, according to pretty much every scout there is, and pretty much guaranteed top 5 pick next year. And in man-to-man, one-on-one coverage, he put up 11 catches for 200 and some odd yards and 2 touchdowns against the number 1 corner. And so, I mean, was he slow? Because I'm pretty sure Stingley's going to tell you he ain't slow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's our wide receiver rankings. Oh, well, did you talk enough about your number 1, Devonta Smith?
Oh, yeah, you can tell I had a lot of information. It was so much to pick apart that I had to just dive deeper and deeper and deeper, but I can't run away from him because everybody else is talking about his size. I keep seeing him fall down boards, and I think he's going to be that guy that if he falls, that you're going to regret it.
Yeah.
I think, though, I mean, we have a couple more minutes for what we normally do. There's some other wideouts in this class that we talked about, like that next tier. And I think maybe we just give a quick shout out to a couple of those guys. Who are maybe 2 or 3 guys that are right there for you that should be the second, early, third round guys that you think can step in and play?
So I'm going to go the opposite real quick before I get to the positive. I'm kind of a hater on Rondale Moore because here's the thing. This guy is explosive, very possibly first-round pick, later first-round guy. And it's not his size because I don't care about size. Hands. You got to be able to catch the ball when you're playing wide receiver, man. And he drops a lot of balls, and it's very worrisome.
He's not on my top 10, so I think we're in concurrence there.
I wouldn't be shocked to see him going late first, early second, though. That's kind of the thing of saying this guy's probably going to be drafted, and I don't love the guy. I need those hands.
I'm on your team on this one. He's my Jalen Reagor of this season. I'm avoiding him. I'm not drafting him. And not only do I see some of the drops, I see some lackluster plays. And he is small, and some guys are small and they play and they don't get hurt, but he gets hurt. He's got a lot of durability concerns. And for me, there's a lot of red flags on him. If he's there late in the draft, yeah, maybe I take a shot on him and develop him. But yeah, he doesn't even make my top 10.
All right. So yeah, now that I got that negative out of the way, I mean, real close, Kadarius Toney, from Florida, like him, big, athletic. Well, I mean, I guess 6 foot isn't big, but big enough. 6 foot's tall, plenty tall enough to play receiver. There's no height concerns if you're 6 foot, at least to me. Really explosive after he gets the ball as well. Very, very quick. The difference between being fast and being quick. Well, he's both, but man, one of the quickest guys with the ball in his hands, and just makes a move and he's gone. So he also had an entire 2 drops. So like his hands. I guess the one thing, hey, he never put up 1,000 yards. He's a bit of definitely a 1-year wonder. This year was his best year, but a lot of talent there. I mean, A very talented player that's being overlooked a little, and I wouldn't be shocked if he was in the late first to early second. I mean, based on his talent, I think that's where you look at him, maybe early to mid seconds is, but you're getting a good deal.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I see some people taking him late in the first, early second. He's got a lot of talent, like you said. He's just super athletic. Uh, he just wasn't quite as good as some other guys to me, in my opinion. But I think he will go in the draft ahead of my number 4 guy. I think my number 4 guy is probably going to be a late second rounder. And so I think some of these guys will go ahead of him, but it doesn't mean that I like him better than him. My a couple of my guys that just missed were Diami Brown out of North Carolina,
Hmm.
and this is some guy that's part of Chris Sims's woo-ha or whatever you want to call it, clickbait conversation, because he has him at 3 ahead of even Jalen Waddle. And I see some incredible film out of Diami Brown, but he is not as electric as Waddle. That being said, he's more electric than Monroe St. Brown, but I don't think he does all the little things Brown does. Uh, Diami had 55 catches, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns this year, but he put up numbers last year too. And I think part of the reason he doesn't have bigger numbers is North Carolina runs the ball so much with Williams and with Carter down there. But I mean, when this kid on the film, he made some plays that were just remarkable to me. His first step is pretty dang quick, and if he gets inside position on a deep route or a deep post, he's done. Like you're done. He's gonna catch the ball. But he had a play against Wake Forest, and it's a contested catch. The corner is in position, and he just catches it one handed, like the corner is not even hanging on him, and then just drops the corner and goes in the end zone. And that impressed me. Um, I think he's got a little bit more to learn still. During the year, I saw his film get a little bit better though. He didn't drive back to the ball at all early on and got better at it. But he doesn't block like some of the other guys that I really like. But I do see some of the talent that Sims was talking about. So I just had to kind of mention him because I did have him right around my like 7, 6, 7, 8 range.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I like Brown, and I always have a little bit of a soft spot for North Carolina and receivers. My buddy played receiver at North Carolina, so I'm always rooting for him. He's quick, he's fast, he's got decent, good size. It, raw is kind of where I would raw with a lot of potential. He's put it in. I guess that's kind of weird to say because he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, but he hasn't had the full development of being a wide receiver. He can go deep, and he's great at going deep. He can do a slant, but I need a little more. But I don't think he's all that far outside of the top five.
yeah, and I think his route trip is actually a little more developed than you give him credit for. But I do think that's where he needs work. He's got to continue to work on that route tree. Um, but but I did see that progression through the year, and progression shows me that he's not done growing yet, mentally and intelligently. So I think he might be one of those guys you get, and then the ceiling on him is a little higher than we gave him credit for sometimes. One other guy I don't know is Eli Moore
Ah,
or Elijah Moore, right? But
yeah, yeah.
he's another guy I'm really keeping an eye on, another undersized guy. But man, you go back to talking about route running and his hips, man, he could shake a fly off. He can move, and I see him start to climb some boards too. Um, he's not first round worthy to me, and he might even slip in there according to some people. But man, I mean, any of these guys in the second round, and if your team is taking one of them, you can't hate on it. You got to be happy with it.
Yeah, definitely the much better small more receiver, in my opinion. Definitely
Yeah,
you want Elijah. But
yeah, I'm on board with you on that one. That's funny when you said it. I looked over and saw the name. I was like, oh no,
yeah,
I don't have him up there. I remembered for a second. And you mentioned a minute ago talking about size and not having to be that big. And there's a couple big guys in this draft, but they're not going to be early. Seth Williams out of Auburn, the kid out of Illinois. There's a couple big guys, but they're going to be later round drafts. They're going to be red zone targets, maybe developmental. And like you said, it's been a long time since we've seen a Calvin Johnson.
yeah, except that Metcalf might be
Yeah,
that. that combination of size. Now, hey, I'm not saying he's
We'll
Calvin
give him a year or
Johnson
two more, but yeah.
I'm not saying he's Calvin Johnson. I'm saying he's huge, and he
Yeah.
is a legit receiver who's huge, and that
I
doesn't come around as often,
Yeah, I was talking more like we haven't seen a Calvin Johnson come out of college in a while. Like Metcalf is big, but he wasn't as dominant in college. And so the game is changing even more and more and more over the years as we've progressed with the game. We've watched the game get quicker, spread out more and more passing. And I think we're going to continue to see these smaller receivers excel. And I really want people to start hating on them for it, because the more you hate on them, the more you miss them.
No, I mean, hey, size. Well, I'm 5'6". I'm not going to rip on anyone for being a little small. Come on.
Is there anybody else you want to talk about, or anything else you kind of want
to? I'm trying to think, but some of the guys we're getting a little deeper in, and I've got a few guys that I like that are kind of
like sleeper
in that
status?
sleeper range that I might.
Well, why don't you talk about one of them?
Okay, well, how about Cade Johnson? I like him. He's out of South Dakota State. We're going small school here. So Cade Johnson, obviously a very productive receiver. Now you're going to be a little suspect playing at South Dakota State, not facing the top tier competition, but talent wise, he's got it. I mean, again, to me, 5'10" is what isn't small for a receiver, really. Maybe wish he was an inch taller, but he's 5'10", 186. But really, who are the best receivers? What are they? 6'2", 6'3", 6 foot. They're not 6'6", 6'5". They're not these giants. So the size isn't an issue for me. Speed, athleticism, game-breaking ability is Cade Johnson. It's kind of insane. He plays for South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits. Guy's a jackrabbit when he's got the ball. I mean, I'm not sure exactly where he goes. Maybe it depends, because I can see teams falling in love with someone this explosive, this fast, this good with the ball in his hands, which he's a star returner as well as a big time, receiver. Hey, he's coming from a small school, but when you're this athletic, does it really matter where you played football, or does it matter that you're a freak athlete?
Yeah, and a lot of times these guys go to these smaller schools for other reasons, not because they're not great athletes, but maybe it's a family situation, maybe it's an academic situation. We never really know without digging into it. I don't know much about them.
So, yeah, I mean, really, he kind of fits in that similar, teams probably see him as more of a slot, but I mean, explosive slot player that you can get maybe in the third, probably more like the fourth to fifth round, just based on size. Though again, once I think he officially tests, there might be a team that kind of says, "Oh, yes."
Yeah, he's kind of slipped under my radar to this point, so I'll have to look at him more and learn more about him.
Yeah, I mean, again, a slot receiver and kick returner. Explosive with the ball in his hands. Yeah, maybe the small school Percy Harvin, I guess. I don't know.
Well, we'll wait and see. Yeah, a couple other guys that might just be people to watch out for, or people to look at for you out there watching tonight. Shi Smith is another guy that I really like. I haven't watched enough film to pick him apart and say what he's really bad at, but I know that the film I have seen, he's been pretty good so far. And I think he finds a team, definitely. And Marquez Stevenson out of Houston's another guy who has been hurt a decent bit. They call him Speedy Stevenson. There's a reason for that. These are just two guys that I'm keeping an eye on later on in the draft. And if they go to a team that doesn't need a starting wide receiver right now, and then kind of learn and evolve and they could be a really good third option for a team later on. That, and not like seventh round late for these two, but just there's some talent there, so don't sleep on these guys either. I'm definitely impressed with this draft class at wide receiver this year. Before we started, I was even talking about how if we put last year's receivers in this draft, you might not agree, but I would have taken Lamb and Jefferson at 4 and 5 if these guys were all in the same class. That's how impressive these big three are to me.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Is it knowing what they're gonna do in the pros last year, or just based off of their college?
Just college, yeah, just based off of college.
Well, yeah, then I would have. I mean, I would say actually Jefferson is outside of the top 5. I mean, Jefferson obviously just gets in because he came in and dominated. But
I had Lamb and Jefferson 1 and 2 last year. I had Judy at 3, so Judy at 3 and Ruggs. You and I mistake that earlier. I forgot all about Judy for a little while.
Yeah,
that's how bad his rookie year was in my eyes compared to the other two guys.
Yeah,
Jefferson was just in a class of his own.
I mean, he was, and so obviously, knowing what you know now, sure, I'd take Jefferson over everyone. If you tell me my rookie wide receiver is going to break the rookie receiving record, I don't care how good you look in college. Sure, yeah, you got it, but. They're absolutely better prospects than I would say Jefferson. I mean, Lamb is one of those I think you could mix in there where you'd have basically 4 guys where, hey, rank these 4 guys kind of how you feel. There's not really a wrong answer,
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are talking about draft classes too soon for grading them sometimes. I always think that after the 1 year and they grade their draft class a little early, that should be called the way too early grading phase.
Oh, it's absolutely way too early.
Jefferson had an amazing season. He really did. And he's a phenomenal player, and he's going to be a great pro for a while. And Lamb didn't have as good of a year, but it doesn't mean that 10 years from now, we don't say that Lamb's had a better career. We just don't know yet. And you throw these guys in there and it's the same boat. After this year, we could sit down and say, oh, well, Chase is the best, Waddle's the best, Smith is the best, because one of them stands out this season. But 5 years down the road, is that guy still the one of, here when everybody else is just here? And we don't know that for 5 years. But it sure is nice to talk about it that 1 year after, when you look real smart before you don't look so smart a few years down the road.
Yeah. It is nice because it does take, well, at least in the past, I mean, it's changed a bit in the past, say, 5 years, but it usually takes receivers maybe 2 to 3 years to really adjust, and that's been kind of a slower position. Now, again, it's changed maybe over the past 5 years, but historically, going back to the early to even late, aughts from 2000 to 2009, you're drafting a rookie receiver. You're hoping if he put up, 600-700 yards, all right, good. This guy's going to be good. Now it's definitely a very positive sign for the future when your rookie receiver goes in and puts up, 1,500 yards. It's tough to see him falling apart. Could he have an injury? Sure. And not come back from that. But it's hard not to see that skill set's probably going to be just fine for quite a few years to come, that it wasn't, 10 99-yard catches. He was catching the ball. He's a playmaker, he's not a fluke, but
he's not a fluke. But even if he drops down to 1,000 yards, some people are like, "What happened?" And that's not fair to him.
Oh, that's
where if CD catches 1,300, it's like, "Oh, look at that step he took." Yeah. And it's not fair. And you're right, though. The league, the receiver adjustment time in the league has they've succumbed that a little bit, like Jefferson did last year. Lamb even had a pretty good year as a third receiver. T. Higgins had a pretty good year in Cincinnati.
Lamb had a little piece of the dropsies.
Yeah,
but hopefully he can,
with DiNucci and Dalton throwing in the ball. I don't know if you saw some of those. They come in end over end.
That's fair. I like CeeDee Lamb. I'm not trying to rank him. I think he's a talented receiver.
I think as we look at the receivers adjusting, I think we still see a lot of the 2 or 3 year. But there's just that one guy that stands out the last few years each year that says, well, maybe it really wasn't needed. And some of the other guys that step in right off the bat and look good are guys, sometimes they're just going to a team that need them. and they just get a lot of balls. You know, like sometimes that's it. You see a guy and he looks really good and he's just got a lot of balls. In the second year, maybe their star receiver's back or they sign somebody and their numbers drop off and you realize, okay, this is probably where this guy's really going to be at. For instance, Ayuk had a pretty good rookie year last year, but I don't know that we're going to see his stat line really increase too much in the future if Debo's healthy because Ayuk doesn't get fed the ball as much as he did this year.
Yeah, I think probably pretty similar numbers is kind of what I'd guess. He's
close to his average.
You're still a number 2 receiver, and you're still a pretty good receiver, but Debo's number 1. It win healthy.
Even if they are both co-number ones, I think they'll both put up pretty similar stats, and Ayuk just won't get those games where he's getting 15 targets anymore. So I think people need to take that into consideration when they're grading people or saying, oh, this guy's going to get better. Like, is he really going to get that many passes when he plays next year? I don't know if he is. But, yeah, I'm excited to talk about, more and more wide receivers with you over the next couple weeks. Because there's some good guys in this draft.
We should shout out, we already wrote our article about him, is Damonte Coxie. And, man, how is this guy rated so low? It's just insane. All he's done is produce at a college level, has good size, decent speed. 4.5 speed. Again, are we really scared that he's, oh my gosh, 4.5? Oh no, he's really slow. There's just his ranking. His projection's probably 7th round, 6th to 7th round, and it's just unbelievable. I think he is truly, 2nd to 3rd round pick in terms of talent, and there's no way, there's a very little chance that that's where he's taken. So I don't know what a guy has to do besides what he's done in college.
Yeah, other than the fact that he retweeted us and he jumped to the top of my favorite receivers board, I'm already trying to find a mini helmet of his for the collection. There he is, by the way. Right behind me.
I saw.
I really like him. He fits my receiver that I love. I talked about like Ross St. Brown blocking, and Coxie's the same way. He loves to hit people. He looks for the contact. He's got good hands. People say he's probably not the fastest, but once again, not every receiver on the field has to be the fastest guy. So I really see a place for him. And I was even kind of having a little imagination time earlier where I was thinking, oh man, if I were to get like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Damonte Coxie, I would have 2 beast blocking wide receivers to develop and run kind of that Shanahan or that Tennessee system, that Arthur Smith system that he ran there and will probably run in Atlanta now. And just let those guys lead block for my runners and just say, oh, well, I got 7 linemen on the field, basically. Just 2 of them are wideouts.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, good hands.
If he didn't opt out, I don't think we're talking about him that late. We're talking about him in the 3rd round if he has another year.
But still, he's already produced for 2 years.
Yeah.
But, hey, that's scouting for you, I guess, sometimes.
Well, I think this season's going to show us a lot of holes in certain teams' scouting departments, the personnel departments, COVID and people opting out in 2020. And even today attending the pro day, we didn't actually get to watch the workouts. And we have to email for results after we get an interview. So there's just a little bit different to it this year. I think guys opting out hurts them a little bit, where had he gone out and done that again, probably even had a better season this year because, he just keeps getting better. We'd be looking at him saying, oh, this guy just had a senior year with 1,300, 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns. And then are we saying, oh, well, maybe he should be going right outside of that top 6 or 7 rate right there? Is he in that conversation for that 7 to 10 wide receiver spot that's going to go in the 3rd round? And I think we would be. And unfortunately for him, it is what it is. But fortunately for some team, they're going to get an opportunity to have a guy like this on their team without having to pay, take a 3rd round pick.
Yeah, write that name down. Unfortunately, what happens with later round picks is it's tougher for them to make the squad. So, I think he's got easily the talent to make a squad, but being a late round pick, it's hard because you don't want to say, oh, yeah, we whiffed on our 4th-round pick. Whoops, we're going to cut him. No, we'll cut this 7th-round pick. You guys expected that.
But
if he makes a squad, keep an eye on him.
In one of my 7-round mocks, before Pittsburgh re-signed Juju, I put him to the Steelers every single time. And they might still. Juju only signed a 1-year deal. But I could definitely see him being that type of Pittsburgh receiver. He can catch the ball. He likes to push people and hit them. He's a workhorse, and he's the type of guy I could see them taking and developing. The only reason I don't know if they take him is they've already got Claypool there, and that gives you a couple of receivers that don't take the top off.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Claypool had an incident today.
Oh, actually, yeah, I saw that video. We will see how long he'll be around.
So we'll see if he's playing next year.
I didn't know that Ndamukong Suh played on the Steelers, but he definitely learned that move from Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah.
Or was it Albert Hainsworth too?
God, it was both of them. The old stomp.
I'm sure everybody will see that the next couple days.
I'm sure they will. So, yeah, we'll see. Well, I hope it works out for Claypool. Great rookie. He had a great rookie season. Hope he's not a knucklehead. I mean, I just hope all these guys aren't knuckleheads and keep themselves on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, I don't want to get too political.
Realistic, but
that was a bad decision. You're getting paid to play a game that all of us would love to be able to make that our career, and you go out. And I know you're young. We all make mistakes when we're young, but to go out and make a decision like that when you have this opportunity and you're in the spotlight, you have to know better. Don't even put yourself in that situation, because something like this can take him out of the game in today's world. So I hope he learns from it, and I hope the league does punish him right, and I hope the guy in the video is okay.
Yep.
So,
all right.
I'll let you get done for the night, and I will probably chat with you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. Check out these receivers and more. DraftDive.com. Follow us at DraftDive. What's the Twitter I'm sorry, not Twitter. What's the Instagram handle?
Draft_dive.
Draft_dive. Hit us up. We're out there. And yeah, go check out sleeper articles and see what happens in some random mock draft if Jacksonville decides to trade that #1 overall pick. Yeah. See how it looks. All right. Well, thanks again, and everyone stay safe out there.